My painful story as a young dad. So I was 23 years old when my ex-girlfriend and I got our baby. She was 19. Actually, she had just celebrated her 19th birthday. And so when we got our first kid, we were, first of all, very poor. Secondly, we were naive and very unready for a kid. But then God had his own plans, so my ex and I were blessed to have a kid, and we named her Amber, baby Amber, meaning a rare jewel. So I was a first-year student at Moy University at that particular point in time. I was coming from a very humble family. This is because my mom at that particular point was actually bedridden with a terminal illness, and my dad had married a second wife, alcohol. So definitely by the fact that we had gotten this kid and we were so much financially unready to raise a kid, I was unable to seek financial support from my family, given that particular situation that was going on back at home. I was also unable to ask for help from my uncles and relatives, because then we all know that relatives can sometimes be strangers to us. So we were in a fix. So as the man of the home, and of course with a new kid there, I had to do what I had to do to fend for both my girlfriend, who is now an ex, and our baby. And my people, you can imagine how difficult that was for me. So the little that God was able to allow me to eke a living from, we were able to fend for baby Amber. But at some point life became so frustrating, because then when as a dad you cannot afford basic necessities like, what are they called? Pumpkins or whatever they are. And then you can also not afford things like milk formula and Pampers and all that. It becomes really frustrating. And at some point during that period, I was contemplating taking my own life because of the pain that I was seeing my young family going through. And then I knew that if I was supposed to, commit suicide and die, my little girl Amber would have never forgiven me for that. So definitely, life had to continue. So one day, something happened. After an afternoon class, I decided to go home and, relax with my kid and her mom. So immediately after class, I didn't bother going to watch that afternoon's. I think it was one of the Premier League games, Premier League semi-finals, and I was madly in love with football. But I had to prioritize my baby Amber, so that I rushed home so that I would spend time with her. So when I got home, I smelled something was terribly off at that particular point in time. This is because I got home and I found baby Amber sleeping, but the mother was out of sight. Her phone was not going through, texts were going unreplied, and I just automatically felt that there was something that was terribly wrong at that point in time. So after close to 15 to 20 minutes of desperate search for her Amber's mom, who's now my ex, my fears were confirmed. Our caretaker came to my door and knocked and handed me a letter, and he told me that Amber's mom had left that letter for me. And with shaking hands, I read through, and she told me that she could no longer stand that particular life that we were going through, and because Amber was my blood, she had to leave her with me. So Amber was my burden to bear. She had excused herself and she had gone away and left me with this kid. It's also important to note, my good people, that at this particular point in time, my ex-girlfriend's dad had realized that she had gotten a baby at only 19 years old. And being the African man that he was, he told his daughter not to step in his compound ever again, because according to him, having a kid at 19 years old would be total shame to his home. So definitely, even now that the mother to my child had disappeared from our little home, I prefer to call it a home, I knew too well that she had not gone back to her father's compound, because then she had been given ultimatums. So she had gone to a place best known to her. My people, that is when I saw sunset at noon. Life became very difficult for me and my little girl. We really struggled, and at some point I said that I could not continue allowing my young kid to sometimes go without food, because I didn't have an income stream. So I decided to, in my own wisdom or lack of it, I decided to enroll baby Amber with a foster care in Eldoret, because then my university, Moi University, was located at the outskirts of Eldoret. So I looked for a foster home and began the registration processes for my kid. I narrated to the children's home officers of my situation, and they duly understood. And through God's grace, baby Amber was able to be admitted for care. At the point of her admission at Eldoret Children's Home, baby Amber was 1 year old. So I said that I made a promise to her, as much as I was leaving her to strangers, that I was going to do everything within my power as her dad to make sure that I bring forth a life that she deserved at a tender age. I was going to make my hands dirty with honest labor, so that at the end of the day she can live a life that is worthy of her. That is a promise dads can always make to their children, especially their daughters. So that is how my kid Amber began her life at a foster home in Eldoret. I continued with my university education back at Moi University. I was allowed to visit Amber the first weekend of every month, and I can tell you that our connection during those visits were priceless. We bonded, and every time I had to finish my visit, I felt so bad. Fast forward after, I think, 3 to 4 years, because then, foster homes and children's homes, they have their regulations and policies as of to when you can apply to pick your kid. There's a certain age that allows you to go back and pick your kid. So after what seemed to be, I think, 3 to 4 years, I received an alert from the foster home at Eldoret that somebody had applied for the custody of baby Amber, my daughter. So I rushed there, because then I was now a 4th year. I was finishing school. I was having an internship program that was paid a little, however little that money was. I knew that it would allow me and my kid to at least get 2 decent meals a day. So that was a plus. Life was beginning to show for itself. So I got a notification from the foster home that a certain lady was applying for Amber's custody, and this lady had stated categorically to the officers that she was Amber's mom, and legally she has a right for the custody of her child. So when I received this particular information that somebody had claimed that Amber was their daughter, and she had consequently applied for Amber's custody, I had to impulsively rush to Eldoret Children's Home so that I can ascertain those claims. When I got there, I found that indeed it was true that my ex-girlfriend, who had abandoned as McHugh, had actually applied for her, and the children's home was actually considering approving her application for custody. This is because, number one, you are given custody of your kid on two conditions or qualifications. You have to ascertain that indeed they are your biological child, of course through government approved ways, which include but not limited to DNA tests, as well as you have to be of sound mind, and finally you have to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that you can financially support this kid. So rumors within the Eldoret Children's Home circles had it that indeed my ex-girlfriend had the financial muscle, the financial ability to provide for our kid Amber. This is because my ex-girlfriend, the moment she had abandoned us 3 years ago, she didn't go home. She actually joined an escort club in Nairobi. So my ex-girlfriend was part of a group of girls that were being used to entertain visiting dignitaries, conference tourists, and people just visiting the country. So they were being picked by a pimp, and they were being used to entertain. When I say used to entertain, you can get what I mean. And through that very filthy business, my ex-girlfriend had made solid money. She had quite an amount in a bank account, and she had used this money to bribe officials at Eldoret Children's Home, so that every decision and determination being made in matters custody for my child, she would be, of course, in favor. So this information was very sensitive, and it was given to me in confidence by one of the officials at Eldoret Children's Home who had been moved by my story. So as a man, I felt so bad that I was losing my kid to a woman who had left her own blood, her own child, and ran away. And now that the kid, had survived, and the kid was now all grown up, looking all good, all intelligent, she wanted to now reclaim her, which I think to me was very unfair from her side. If she really wanted this kid in her life, she would have stayed. But even if she didn't want to stay with me given my financial situation, then she would have gone with her kid and chatted life away with her. But the fact that she had left this kid with me at only 1 year old, she had gone away, no communication. And now she had come back to pick her kids from the foster home that had assisted me in raising her. I thought that was amateurish. I thought that was completely out of this world. And I, as a man, would not, even the fact that she had spent so much money at the foster care through bribing those officials, I knew I had to do something to save my little baby Amber from being taken away from me. So her being well off at that point with the filthy money that she had made as an escort, and me still, trying to find my footing in life, all the odds were against me but for her. So my one desperate attempt to have my kid stay with me was to go to court, because as much as I had my own trust issues with our court systems in this country, we all know what money can do in this country. But I knew that a judge somewhere would give me a listening ear so that my baby girl is not taken away from me. Eldoret Magistrates Court, I remember we were able to file an application. She submitted her application, I submitted mine, and we were given a date to make solid submissions as to why each of us wanted to separately take custody of baby Amber. So we were given a date, and towards that date, my past 4 years reflected and played in front of my eyes. I got a kid at a very young age when I was not ready, naive, and financially unprepared. But children are blessings from God. So we thanked and we returned all glory and honor back to Him. I got a kid with a woman I was in a relationship, as much as she was younger than me. She was 19. But we were in love at that particular point in time. And it is through life's hardships that we were going to prove each other's love, and most importantly, the love we had for our kid, baby Amber. But the mere fact that I was not in a position to provide for them, she left. You would have to teach me like a 1-year-old kid how this woman was supposed to handle this baby, even if the court was going to grant her custody. So fast forward, the day came, and at Eldoret Magistrates Court, I was present. My ex-girlfriend was present, but most importantly, baby Amber was also present. She was now 4 years old, looking all intelligent, and her face was radiating hope. This was my seed, somebody I was willing to die for, so that she would remain in my life. I don't know how much my ex-girlfriend and her money they had gotten into corrupting the judicial systems then, but truly, I did not care. All I wanted was to table my case before the judge. So our time for hearing, I remember that day it was 11 a.m. in the morning. We waited for the court system to do away with a few light cases that were pending, so ours was actually the last. I remember Judge Mutai very well, a woman who seemed to be in her mid-40s, very elegant, by spectacled, looking all brilliant and motherly. And this was the only human being on planet Earth that day who was going to either break or make my life. My fate as a young dad then was squarely lying on the hands of Judge Kimutai. The court got into session, and she told both my ex-girlfriend and I to make very, very convincing and solid submissions as to why each of us wanted to have Amber for ourselves. Of course, my ex-girlfriend had 2 reasons. Number 1, she was the mother. And number 2, she had the money to raise her daughter Amber well. I was stunned too, and I was asked, Socrates, why do you want to be with Amber? So I narrated to that court where the genesis of my story with this lady and this kid. Our life at Moi University, our backgrounds, when baby Amber came into this world, how she disappeared at the time that I, as her then boyfriend, and Amber as a kid, needed her the most. How I approached Eldoret Children's Home to take care of Amber. 3 years of mental torture now that I could only see her once a month, and now the way her mom, who then was my ex, had reappeared from nowhere to claim ownership. And I tabled a very honest question to court. At that particular point in time, who do you give custody to? The dad, myself, who has been in Amber's life, though with struggle, or the biological mom, who now has the financial capacity, the financial muscle to take care of this kid? I remember very well the court was very calm. And when I finished narrating my story, I could see Judge Mutai fighting very hard to her tears not to flow. The mood in the court was very tense, meaning this was one of the biggest and the most controversial, what are they called? The fate of the 3 of us was hanging in a very dangerous balance. And moral dilemma, that's the word. The court was in a moral dilemma on who to grant custody to. But at the end of the day, decisions must be made, and therefore a decision was made. Judge Mutai looked at me and told me, Socrates, according to the laws of this country, according to the Constitution of Kenya 2010, I don't remember the articles that she quoted, custody of any child is granted to the biological mom. At this point in time, your ex-girlfriend qualifies to be granted custody because she has met the minimum criteria according to the law and the Constitution of Kenya. Unlike you, Socrates, who still, unfortunately for you, you do not have, much as you're the biological dad, you still do not have that financial capability to raise this kid. But again, Socrates, you've been in this kid's life and you've struggled to see her grow. Unlike the mom who ran away, got into a dirty business, made some little money, and now she's using her money to get the kid back. But now I want to be fair to the two of you. I want to ask this child who she wants to go home with today. And therefore, Judge Mutai turns to my little girl, Amber, and asks her, baby Amber, between dad and mom, who do you want to go back home with today?